Rap music. You can't go anywhere without hearing somebody bumping their favorite song by Lil Peepee or Lil Wee Wee. All kids want to listen to nowadays is rap music, and it seems like it's on top of the world. In fact, it seems like throughout all of rap's history it's been on top. Well, it's not that simple. Rap music has gone through many major shifts in its history to become what it is today, and I don't doubt that it will change even more over the next 20 years. I've done some digging on the history of rap and why it became so successful within the last decade, and I've developed some conclusions to that question. And before we start, I just want to say that I'm not using this video to throw shade at rap music because I think it's a beautiful thing. I just have always been curious about its story and how it overcame so much. Now let's begin. Let's take it back to the 1960s. At this time, the civil rights movements were at their highest, and many major developments were being made for quality of life for African Americans, due to many civil rights leaders stepping up and leading these monumental movements. With these changes, black music was stepping into the spotlight, and African American pride allowed for this music to become more recognized, as African Americans were realizing their greatness. Despite all of these movements and flourishing of African American culture, America was still greatly imbalanced, as there was heavy economic and political inequality. Flash forward to the 1970s, this political imbalance was still prevalent in America, and it began to come out in the art, specifically the music. Performers sang about various subjects, from race to class to gender inequality and other issues of the time. A specific subgenre of this music was braggadocio. Remember this one for later. Keep in mind that up until this point, the world didn't know rap, and Black America thrived on soul, funk, jazz, and early R&B. However, the turntables had been long developed, and people used them to play music at the time. So it all started when disc jockeys, aka DJs, started messing with these songs and playing the breakdowns of them on repeat. Then they would freestyle over these new beats to end up producing this type of sound. This concept originated in New York City block parties, and it only grew in popularity from there as it developed as a genre. Throughout the 70s, DJs would become famous for contributing to this extremely successful genre. We'd see people like DJ Kool Herc, who would invent a new technique called breaking, where he would cut two of the same records to extend a breakdown of a popular song, African Bambaataa, who would form the four elements of hip-hop, Grandmaster Flash, who would create a revolutionary technique of mashing two songs together to remix them, which would be adopted by literally every DJ after him, and many others. At the early stages of hip-hop, it featured the DJ, but what happens when we feature the rappers instead? Oh shoot, it's changed a lot. Now music videos are coming out featuring the rapper lip-syncing to their music. At this point in time, rap music was being popularized into the mainstream due to artists like Run DMC rapping over samples of other genres like rock, which would appeal to a variety of audiences. So throughout the 1990s, rap music was going strong, and new greats were being added to the game. In the early 1990s, the hip-hop/rap genre exploded to become by far the most common genre of music on the Billboard Hot 100 charts for 2 decades. Rap music was on top at this time, so why don't we hear anything like it today? Going into the 2000s, hip-hop music was dominating America. New subgenres were constantly being formed, which spread the genre further and further until almost everyone could resonate with it. Hip-hop was easily the most popular genre, and it seemed to be the new wave. However, in the early 2000s, sales of hip-hop music began decreasing. Suddenly, it felt like hip-hop was only a trend, and it wasn't relevant anymore. The reason for this sudden decline was its popularity. Let me explain. Hip-hop began to reach out way past its original community. It began as a way to express ideas and a more storytelling art. It was also used to talk about gang affiliations, which was called gangster rap. However, with this new popularity and different communities adopting the genre, it began to lose its original purpose, as people would rap about anything. Remember that weird word I told you to remember? That was one of the main things that caused people who listened to rap to drop off of it, as it was straying too far from the original music. And this decline took place in the early 2000s, 20 years after it began to take off, and it seemed like it would be put to rest. However, as I've mentioned before, hip-hop developed many subgenres, one of which being alternative hip-hop. Alternative hip-hop was far from traditional hip-hop, as it would incorporate other popular close genres like neo-soul or R&B. This fusion of genres made its way into the mainstream, led by alternative rappers like Kanye West and Outkast. This new era is commonly referred to as the bling era, and it changed rap music forever. You kinda understand how this will lead to hip-hop becoming how it is today, right? If not, I'll make an analogy, and it might make some of y'all click off the video and leave a dislike, but I'll do it. If you have education on the history of Christianity, you may be able to see that the constant reformations and new kinds that popped up all over the world made it much softer. It also made it so that almost no one actually follows what was in the Bible who claims to be Christian. The rules kept on changing until the point that it became more of a suggestion for followers. This is what happened to rap music, on a lesser scale of course. It kept on changing to the point where the original music got lost in all of the commotion. The bling era was a transition point from old hip-hop and modern hip-hop as we know it, and whether we like it or not, kinda saved hip-hop as a genre. Because this era of mixing genres gave hip-hop the boost it needed to rise again. Over the next decade, new subgenres were popping up all the time, and rap was eating people up. A new age of artists, referred to as SoundCloud artists, began to take over. This is where what the old heads call mumble rap started. It's a subgenre of rap which consists of a pretty basic melody with a heavy bass and a beat with futuristic sounding instruments. This is where the beats start to carry rap music, as people in that period began to not care what the rapper says as long as it sounds good. Let's take it back to 1996 real quick, which is about 15 years from this time. An American company called Antares Audio Technologies is credited with inventing Autotune, a fancy mechanic that uses a computer to alter the pitch of a singer or rapper so that they can achieve a perfect note. This was revolutionary. Maybe not in 1996 though, but through the late 90s and early 2000s, singers started experimenting with this sound, examples being Cher's Believe or Snoop Dogg's Sensual Seduction. Autotune was known for having this robotic sound, which was a high contrast from anything before. It was either a hit or miss for people, with half the people saying the sound was cool and others saying it was going to ruin music. By the mid-2000s, Autotune was just a weird effect that no one really used, and then an artist named T-Pain began using it sound different from everyone. This, combined with the slightly rising popularity of Autotune, gave it a huge boost, and many artists began using it for the cool robotic effect. Mind you, its original purpose was to correct pitch. So flash forward to the 2010s again, Autotune made its way into rap music, but it wasn't too bad yet. The mainstream of the early 2000s was more positive music, and a lot of braggadocio. It sounded a lot like party music. Autotune was featured a bit, but not as a robotic effect, as rappers would begin to sing on the beats. This changed rap monumentally, because that now opens a new subgenre of more melodic rap songs with the same types of lyrics. This ends up pushing rap music incredibly close to R&B, as some rappers would begin to straight up make R&B songs with the same type of braggadocio feel, and others would get into their feelings. I believe that the late 2000s and early 2010s were the closest rap music ever got to R&B music. Despite all of this, we still see some of the old style hip hop thriving every now and then in the early parts of 2010s. Songs like Airplanes, Power, and a lot of alternative hip-hop feature this sort of feel. We start to see new alternative rappers come out who change the game monumentally, like Eminem, Drake, Kanye, and Tyler, the Creator. These alternative rappers continue sampling music from other genres, and it seems to work. During the mid-2010s, the mainstream rap music shifted into more hype-style music, as lyrics lost a bit of their meaning. Songs like Gucci Gang, Versace, and others don't feature a lot of lyrical variety, but the combination of the beat and the flow of the rapper make these songs hits at the time. Here we can see rap shifting from being lyrical and meaningful to more centered around the actual music. Beat making shifts too, as there are less samples and producers get their hands on more futuristic, bright sounds. Many of the mainstream alternative rappers of the early decade were able to make the switch. However, like Eminem, who was able to continue making unique music despite the shift in taste. Autotune also became more used around this time as well, as some songs began to feature a more robotic style to fit better over the futuristic sounding beats. Keep your eyes on Travis Scott and Fetty Wap, because they're going to mark the shift in autotune usages for effect. A new rapper who basically defines the mid to late 2010s mainstream is XXXTentacion, as he masterfully combined all the hype of the mid 2010s with some alternative rap songs sprinkled in there. He could make any type of music, and he really led the charge in the late 2010s. By this time, beats became so advanced, rappers could say whatever they wanted and it would still fly. Okay, that was kind of a glaze, but it really felt like it. As we get further into this period, we see the beats progressively becoming better and suiting rappers more. Songs became way more hype and beats began to start sounding the same. Rappers began sounding the same too, due to one type of flow. The triplet flow. If you don't know music theory, I'll explain it to you real quick. The triplet gets its name for containing 3 notes of even length in the span of one beat. It sounds like this. Yeah, Snoop Dogg doesn't really like the flow.
All them sound the same.
And I kinda don't blame him. Triplet flow is an easy way to float over a beat and sound like you're rapping fast, but after a while it gets repetitive. Despite this, the triplet flow begins to take over around this time, and rappers like Drake would be experimenting with its sound. XXXTentacion was on fire at this time, creating only bangers and being loved due to his ability to stay unique, even with all rappers seemingly following one path. He became famous around this time for melodic rap, which would also be represented by Juice WRLD, who would rise to fame during the late 2010s for his emotional hits. 2019 was the year where rap really took a turn. A big part of this was Lil Nas X's Old Town Road. The song would masterfully fuse rap with country music, which was seen as the complete opposite. However, the amazing beat and catchy melody would lead the song to becoming an absolute hit, garnering over 600 million views on YouTube. This would initiate a second wave of the bling era, where fusions of other genres of rap would see their way into the mainstream. As you can see, rap music transitioned more than it ever had during the 2010s, as new subgenres would make their way into the mainstream, and the game was constantly changing. That's part of the reason that I believe rap became so popular. It was for everybody. There are so many different types of rap music to listen to, so much so that it doesn't even feel like one genre. The difference between the old school hip hop and the new school rap music was quite literally the 2010s. But this isn't a conclusion, because there's still 3 more years to cover in the history of rap. 2020. Some may call it the worst year in history, and that point can be argued. 2020 seemed to be hell for just about everyone, and one of the major changes was that everybody had to stay at home. This obviously changed the rap game, as music videos needed to be filmed at home and the world was basically closed down. That led to moments like this occurring. But that's less important. The new technologies of 2019 led into the 2020s, and autotune became more and more prevalent. The problem is, music was getting more bland as rappers started to sound the same again, and that combined with music videos being less interesting made rap fall off a bit in 2020. On top of this, there was another genre that was really picking up this year: Pop music. I don't really like using the term pop because it just means popular, but it developed its own meaning. Pop usually refers to highly energetic songs with simple chord progressions and catchy melodies. The thing is, 2020 is notorious for being a shit year, and it got a lot of people depressed. The high energy of pop music combined with the uplifting lyrics and overall good mood led it to flourish during this year. This in turn took rap off the charts a little bit. So rap music fell out of the spotlight as mainstream music became more pop-centered. There were still a few rap songs that thrived like WAP and What's Poppin', but even in these songs you can see that mainstream rap music became more like pop music. This worked inversely too though, as those mainstream rap songs brought even more viewers to the genre. This will be important for the next 3 years. So going into 2021, rap had to make a comeback. At this time, TikTok had already become a superpower and songs would blow up all the time and become hits. The expanding audience allowed for these rap songs to succeed on TikTok and rap began to pick up again. This time, the mainstream was a lot more diverse, with hype songs being featured, similar to 2016, but rappers would use a lot of autotune. Here is where singing over beats became the new mainstream, and most of the rappers on top would sing simple melodies and it would become a hit. Some rappers would stay with the rapping flow, however, like DaBaby, who would maintain his signature sound throughout his whole career. Towards the end of 2021, we would see the rise in gangster music again, with a different style. Beats would go away from sounding like this to sounding like this. Of course, that last example wasn't a gangster song, and it was later 2022, but beats became way more energetic with this bass rhythm. As well as that, there was this sound called drill that became extremely popular throughout this time. This style of beat brought a dance trend called sturdy to the masses, and all throughout social media people were doing this thing. That brought immense popularity to drill rap music and repopularized all of rap music again. Those two beat styles were the leading styles of music during 2022, and they would carry rap music. Remember how I said that gangster music was coming back? Towards the end of 2022, gangster music made an extreme return featuring the drill beat. Rappers would use the triplet flow over the beats to create an amazing sounding combo that made rap fans go crazy. During the end of 2022 and early 2023, this was the mainstream of rap music, and it still seems to be today. Throughout the history of rap, there have been standouts which went past the mainstream, and these songs have brought light to the fact that all rap doesn't have to sound the same. So my reason for why rap music became the #1 genre of music in America and most of the Western world is because it was constantly incorporating other genres into it while staying true to its core aspects. With the constantly shifting mainstream and new rappers that change the game drastically, you can never get tired of rap. The way I see it, the talent level never dropped in rap. The music itself just changed. A genre that started with New York City block parties and DJs was able to turn into a superpower that's constantly gaining new listeners, and I find that amazing. Anyway, I hope you learned something about rap because I did while making this video. Have a supercalifragilisticexpialidocious day, everyone.